All right, we are live. Welcome to the second Quantum Terror live stream. I'm here with Pop Culture Minefields, Gerry and Keith, and Scribe Light, and I think Fat Steven Seagal is going to be joining us at some point too. So keep an eye out for him. But we are now talking all things Stranger Things Season 4. Volume 1. I hope you've all watched it.
What's Stranger Things?
I'm enamored with this show on multiple levels. I like it. I'm happy with it. Yeah, feel free to disagree. There's a lot going on in the show.
I'm just teasing you, dude.
Well, I didn't know. We didn't talk about this. I don't know. You could have come on to
I fucking love the show, dude.
Great. And fortunately, our live audience has, missed out on Gerry's anatomy lesson of the female parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean with your clitoris monster?
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So, I really like this show. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it too. It works for me on a number of levels, and one of the things I'm trying to figure out is, being a man in my 40s who enjoys the show with his family, with his kids, and I notice a lot of other younger people really like this show. I'm kind of watching it and going like, is this show really made for me? Because when I first watched season 1, I thought lower budget, Lovecraftian monster, mystery, intrigue. It's kind of dark. And then the season, it kind of evolved into something else. And I wasn't as big on, especially season 3, I wasn't as big on.
Yeah.
But now season 4, it has really come into just its own thing. And even though we see it from a Lovecraftian perspective, I don't think I've even remembered them mentioning Lovecraft in this show. It's all about D&D. They always relate it to D&D. So it's a show that, as a filmmaker and as someone who wants to create great characters, I am really just intrigued on what they're doing. And it seems wholly different than so many of the other shows that we're experiencing at the moment. I mean, watching Kenobi and just going like, yeah, exactly. Just going like, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, it hits on many different levels. First of all, having gone through, because I was in high school at the time period that this is set, although I'm older. Gerry and I are older than the kids in the actual years that this is set. I think season 4 is 86.
Yeah, I was like,
so I had already graduated high school by then. So, but
when the show started, the year the show started, I think I was 19.
Yeah. So it hits on many different levels. I get kind of like a mixture of things. It's Lovecraftian, but it's also got elements of really good drama in being about high school and about the changes of high school, balanced out with a kind of a Joss Whedon Buffy flair a little bit. There are several different elements that this entire show hits on that I at first thought, man, this is never going to really work over the course of the life of the show. You'll never be able to keep the interest up, and yet they have. So I got to give it up to the Duffer Brothers for doing that. I mean, I don't think anybody could have balanced all this stuff. And when you have episode 1 referencing part of a storyline from a massively popular Marvel comic, meaning X-Men, wow. I mean, I knew I was in for something. So yeah. That's the way I see it.
And it's interesting how that came around too, because the issue they were referencing was I think it was Jean Grey did to I forget the name of the character, but it was a Hellfire Club story, which now they're in the Hellfire Club as gamers, as tabletop gamers. And there is actually an instance in that comic where she throws the character that's been like manipulating her up against the wall in the same way that Eleven does. Well,
it's not just that though. You also have to look at the relationship of all the kids. What Jean Grey goes through in in X-Men through the Hellfire Club separates her from the rest of the group, and in many ways they're all being separated. It isn't just Elle going through things; it's all of them.
Yeah.
And all these different ways that you separate out from the rest of the group and start to find your way.
Yeah, that's one of I found kind of the weaknesses so far. I mean, I'm not to be a rain cloud, but as soon as everybody split up, you start having these 4 different stories going, and then they kept competing for my attention because some are more interesting and move the plot forward better than others. Like, for example, let's call it the four stories we'll say are Russia, 11, Scooby-Doo Gang, and Road Trip. That's how I'd sort of classify them. Okay, so Road Trip is Mike and Will and them trying to find 11, which the audience already knows where 11 is effectively. So we're waiting for them to catch up with the story as we already know it. So it's not really driving the plot. There's some character development stuff going on, but overall, every time we hit that story beat, I kept going, the 11 story. So I had to rank them.
Fast forward? Because I fast forward through some of it.
Just, this is the thing, and so a lot of Stranger Things has been informed by, or at least inspired by, Stephen King, right? And I remember when I was reading The Stand back when I was a teenager. That is a long book, and it's got a lot of multiple story threads that eventually converge. And what I found when I was reading that book was I'd be interested in some characters and their adventures and not others. And so I'd end up skipping over chapters trying to find the next chapter of the characters I liked. And that's what I found my mind kind of wanting to do as I watched this, because 11's story, it just drags on and on. How many times did we see Owens arguing with Brenner about you're pushing the kid too far? It just went on. And then the Scooby-Doo Gang story, really good. That's fun. But the one that I wanted to see more and more was Russia, because of all the seasons so far, I think Russia is the most far afield.
Well, he is by far the most favorite character in the show.
Sure. But at the same time, that story, like every season so far has been... I originally thought the Stranger Things was going to be an anthology show, that every season was going to be a different story with a different scenario, but maybe in all the same universe. Because I don't know if you can carry, this is my thought, just like what Keith was saying. I didn't know if they could carry the story forward as well as season 1 was and maintain that level of quality and attention.
Yeah, because they fucked up in season 2 pretty bad.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. Season 2 and 3, it almost feels like season 4 should be season 2, because we have a new
I said that too,
guy.
because just season 1 and season 4 are more connected, and they actually make sense. Now, I know some of the stuff that happened in season 3 and 4, season 2 and 3, helped us get to season 4.
Yes.
And without it, we might not understand. But the fact is, as far as quality of storytelling goes, season 1 and season 4 are the best. Season 2 and season 3 are very weak and to not good.
I think what the Duffer Brothers were attempting to do was elevate.
You keep bringing them up, but I think they are the most perverted motherfuckers I've ever heard. There's something
they throw a lot.
Look, in interviews.
They throw a lot of stuff in there, because going through this season, I was having flashbacks to high school. I mean, serious flashbacks. Me too. And so look, I think it's safe to say those two young men are younger than we are. For them to have been able to hit as many of the things as they were able to hit and kind of get right is scary. It's very, very scary. I think to have a show go as long as it has on Netflix and not get canceled, be able to keep the entire cast together, be able to have some semblance of a story that they've been able to at least kind of focus on, to certain episodes being better than others, certain seasons being better than others. I find that it has a lot of ups and downs. Now, is it straight up consistent, say like Buffy was? Not really. Again, we all can agree that certain seasons have been better than others. But this is definitely not something that I think they had to make a lot of changes over time. I think even they had an idea of what they wanted to do versus the reality, which is you're dealing with a young cast. You're dealing with all of the realities of being a teenager, both within the bounds of the story, but also within the lives of the cast. That's something that Joss Whedon really didn't have to deal too much with Buffy. A lot of them were already older when they started the show, so you didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, the teenagers were played by 20-somethings.
Yeah. So I just think that...
Oh, sorry.
Yo, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the popularity of the show's carried primarily on the strength of the characters and on the acting, because the story surrounding them, I mean, for the most part, it feels like the audience was forgiving of a relatively, lackadaisical or scattered story in season 2 and 3, because the characters were fun to watch.
Well, it is a character-driven show. I agree with you.
Yeah, and with season 4, it feels like, I always feel like shows like this and Carnival and Penny Dreadful, it's like season 1 is so strong and so good. You think, okay, these guys had a really good idea for a first season, but then they had to be required to redo it again in the next season, and they weren't quite ready. It feels like season
Heroes
2 and 3
had that same problem too.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like season 2 and 3 was almost like training ground for season 4. It feels like they've learned from some of their mistakes of season 2 and 3.
I think helped them too.
Yeah, extra time. The extra time, I think, definitely probably gave them an advantage they didn't have in the previous seasons to reflect and refine.
Yep. And I really do believe that had a huge impact on the quality of the writing.
Yeah. Well, look, as far as Heroes goes, that was a big mistake, because you were dealing with a creator and a group of writers, for the most part, that seemingly had never picked up a comic book in their life. Heroes would have benefited by having actual people that had written for comics on their writing staff. That is mind-boggling to me, how you have never read comics, and yet you can create a show like Heroes and then completely drop the ball going right into one of the season 2. I mean, that's a heartbreaking thing for that show. See, the first episode of season 2, and it's just like a completely different writing staff, like Kurtzman.
Well, let me chime in and first of all, welcome, Fat Steven Seagal.
Hey.
Hi, can I quickly add to that quickly? Oh, you're a dick, Gary. Shut up. But the other thing is like we were talking about season 2. I felt like the people who wrote that were so focused on the Genosha arc from the X-Men 90s cartoon that they were trying to make it a Genosha arc. It was season 2, right? We didn't get season 3, right? It was the seasons 2 where they had the collars and they were trying to extract powers and all that stuff. It was like they took from Genosha X-Men, and that was their only basis for comics. That cartoon.
Well, but they acted like they'd never read comics before. That show could have gone so much further if they had just had people on staff that had actually would admit that they've read a comic book or 3. And but that was the thing that the creator tried to get through, was like, no, I've never read a comic book in my life. And it's like, ooh.
I don't know how, though, because Sylar is one of the best villains I have ever been introduced to. Like a man who literally cuts your head open by pointing a finger and steals the part of your brain that has the ability. That is brilliant itself, because we've never introduced to a hero like that.
I totally agree.
I swear to I'm going to slap you so hard, you're going to turn into Jackie Chan.
Whoa!
I would like you to slap me real hard.
I would like to slap you so hard you don't know what's going on.
All right.
I'm sorry, guys.
Back to Stranger Things and
yes.
We're losing you, Chris.
That's Scribe, I think.
No. What's going on?
Is that what happened?
Is it me?
Coming back. I can hear you again.
You all of a sudden were on the deck of an aircraft carrier.
We're in the underneath, or whatever they call that on Stranger Things.
It might be my mic. I don't know what it is. If I don't talk for a while, the gain starts to reach out to the rest of the world.
Voice too. He got
was it
quiet.
okay? I apologize. I'll try to mute myself when I'm not talking. Maybe that'll avoid it.
No problem. We're good. So I want to kind of highlight some of the things that I find good about Stranger Things that I really enjoy, and I think Scribe, you're right. The characters and the actors are a main focal point, because I know that when I watch my kids, and I watch my kids and my wife watch the show in a kind of Aristotelian way where I'm looking at their responses as the show goes on, and even noting my own responses, because I do get emotionally involved in it as well. You know, and Keith, you're right. The way that they weave so much in, whether it be the horror movie references, the comic book references, the just general knowledge of the 80s, because in the 80s I was riding my bike around neighborhoods and exploring wilderness and all that sort of thing. So that brought back a lot of memories for me. My dad was a rock manager, and so Ronnie Dio was actually a friend of my family. So to see a Dio jacket was pretty cool. And you know, just shout out.
You're talking about Eddie's character, right?
Yeah, Eddie's character wearing the Dio jacket.
Yeah.
Ronnie Dio was literally a friend of my family's and one of the sweetest people you will ever meet. And I didn't know he was famous until later on. I just thought he was a friend of the family's. So
Rainbow.
By the way, my dad managed Rainbow, and Ronnie Dio was a comic book fan. We used to talk Death of Superman when that was going on. Anyway, just so those are all strong aspects. One of the things that I really also love about the characters and the theme of the show is, you know, and Scribe, you said something last podcast that kind of went over my head at the time, but I kind of came back to me when I was reviewing it in my head, which was that what you call the Scooby-Doo gang has kind of become the elder statesman. And there is in all of the storylines, and I'll address Stephen King and Joss Whedon later, because I'm actually, especially The Stand, I have major problems with, but that's going off the rails. So, but one of the things that in all the storylines, there's something that's lacking in so many of the shows that we are constantly watching and complaining it's just not there, which is real loyalty and heroism. These people act heroically. These people, they, you know, they're there for each other. Even when they're arguing, they are, you know, willing to face danger, willing to put themselves in danger to help other people, willing to go places and do things that, you know, could potentially get them into a lot of trouble or killed. And this is just something that we're not seeing in so many television shows. And I think at a time where that's lacking, the fact that that's resonating with audiences in a huge way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like Stranger Things 4 has brought, I've saw people going like, Stranger Things 4, it's not going to be like, no one cares anymore. And then it came back probably like that, and Top Gun Maverick are like there. So, and like people are talking about all over the places. Now, there are things I see young people talking about, like the scene where Eleven belts that girl with the roller skate in the head.
That was an awesome scene, dude.
You know, but it's a great parallel because it puts her in parallel with what's his name, the orderly that turns out to be Victor Creel's son. Wow, these names elude me, but
I just call him number one.
Now, I've got to tell you, I suspected from the very beginning that he was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was
I did
that was
not
telegraphed.
expect one to also be the kid in the fucking backstory.
Yeah, no, that was telegraphed. But you were talking about heroes and everything and sacrifice. And yeah, I mean, what do we, just as the most recent example, let's look at Kenobi. You have two character types there. You have a washed out, broken person, or you have somebody who cannot fail. That's really the spectrum we have with a lot of characters these days. You either have the Mary Sue, or you have the person who's got to rediscover themselves and they're destroyed and they're all depressed and everything. The characters in Stranger Things thankfully have range. They have flaws, but you also see that there's genuine connection there and reliability between them. And you also see, I mean, and that's, I would hope that comes from behind the scenes, everybody really gets along, and that really comes through because everybody knows each other. And you feel like you go ahead.
There's a problem.
Oh, I was just going to say, oh, go ahead. Sorry
about that. But like that doesn't, but the recent article that came out with Millie Bobby Brown?
Yes.
Wasn't there that interview with the article saying that she's literally said that the characters now need to start getting knocked off like Game of Thrones? Do you think that's also kind of like a red flag that she's maybe getting sick of this cast?
Yeah,
and maybe
clear
that
she's getting sick of it.
But it has to come to the end of the chapter for all of them because they are their own arc. It would have to be a new set of characters, and even it would have to be like either in the future or some type of offspring or something that's related from what happened in Hawkins that is spread to somewhere else, and a new group is being introduced. Because I don't think they can continue. It's like you have the crew of the Enterprise, but even the crew of the Enterprise changed with TNG. You can't keep having these people who are now in their 20s constantly pushing up. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to do spoilers.
Well, no, we're talking full spoilers today, and honestly, I do want to get to the rumors that a character may die in the season, and I think that's something interesting to talk about because people are so wrapped up in the characters, and kind of when you think about if a character dies, what are the repercussions of that going to be for the rest of the story? But it's also like, you think, okay, well, this character, like say, for example, Will is the one to die. Well, Will was the one to rescue for the first 2 seasons. And, and then after that, he was a big kind of character in terms of like in season 3 of the breaking up of the Friends. And then to have him die in this season, that would be like, well, that kind of defeats everything that came before. And
yes, it does.
Turn him into like a Job-like character, like he's always cursed to be harmed, failed, captured, or something.
Well, you know what? I almost kind of see these kids and these characters and the story almost like Harry Potter. Because you start out season 1 kind of like their perspective. They're younger. They're just now starting out. The horrors and the things and the bad things that have happened have progressed as they've gotten older. And if you've noticed, the amount of danger that they're in progresses as they get older. Okay. For me, if I were to think of anyone dying, it would really almost be either Dustin or Lucas at this point.
Nah, Steve. It's going to be Steve. That's my guess.
It's either going to be Steve or it actually might be Winona Ryder's character.
Well,
because they just reunited,
right now,
and
my prediction is it's going to be Noah or the character Will, because since he's been back, he's never been quite right, and he feels out of place. I'm expecting them for him to be gay. That he's
I think that's what they're heading towards.
His emotions because of how he feels about Mike. Mike is not gay. He is clearly into Elle. But his character's struggling. He's struggled all 4 seasons. He's always been struggling. And since he's been back, it's been worse for him. And he's the one I predict that's going to die.
I could see how you would reach that, but I think the Duffer Brothers would be smart not to kill Will. In fact,
creepy Duffer Brothers.
But
have you never heard them talk about kids? It's just they did that Stranger Things after show, and it was creepy to fucking watch us talk. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with those guys, man?
I have a question. When did Empire Strikes Back come out? What year? I forget.
1980.
All right, so we're in the 80s. Think of it this way. If they really are going to nostalgia purposes, Gerry has a good point. It could be Will, and he could pull a Han Solo moment saying, I love you, I know, and then he sacrifices himself. There you go.
That's what I see happening, is that he's the fifth wheel.
I have several predictions. It could be Will, maybe. I wouldn't agree with that position. It could be Mike, or it could be I think Dustin or Steve are possible. I don't think it'd be Joy's character. Joy or Joyce? Joy.
Yeah, Joyce.
I think the
Will's
worst
mom.
choice would be what's his name, Jonathan, because as likable as he is, he's just such a doofus, and I think him dying would not have an impact on anybody. It needs to be a character that people are going to give a shit about. And
well, it would have a major impact.
I don't think they'll kill Mike. His character is too tightly woven in with Elle.
The reason why
Will
I think
is such
Lucas
an outsider in his own group.
But that's the thing. High school is all about the awkwardness and what happens after high school. Your ability to be able to grow through everything. To me, it's
Now, if they
almost
kill
a
Lucas,
waste to
they're
kill.
racist. I'm just saying now.
If you kill Will off, that means a lot of this is for nothing, and that the actual focus was just on 11. I think that 11 and Will are tied in a way that both of them need to come out the other side of this to see where they end up. With Lucas is someone who is kind of growing beyond the group a bit.
Oh, he's
he has his moments, and to kill him off is I don't want to see him go, but to kill him off would be big. Although Dustin would be bigger. Dustin is kind of like the closest thing to a Ray Stance.
Popular. There's no fucking way.
Well, he's the Ray Stance of the group,
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you who do you think was the most interesting character arc? Of the season. Because I know mine is.
I'm actually going to say something about that here, which is that I think that every story arc, even though some are not as interesting as other to different people, are all important, because if you don't fast forward through them, even like the road trip story is about all these characters kind of they're not just road tripping, they're on a journey towards they're all on a journey towards each other. They're all going to meet up at the end, and all of their arcs in each individual story are going to come to a head as they all come together. And it's going to be relevant to everybody's story, even though that they haven't seen each other. So I think that, it's possible that, the gang in Hawkins who are fighting Vecna may not get the chance to warn another party of Vecna. Like I said, I'm trying to think of it from a story perspective. Like I said, I don't think Joyce, any of her kids should get killed, because I think she's been through enough. I think it'd be not a good idea to kill off Joyce or kill off Hopper again, for a second time. I'm still worried for Max, actually, because, and I am worried for Will for these reasons. Will has a painting that he once hasn't shown, and the letters that Max handed out, nobody opened them. They haven't been addressed since. So they may be just like they did with last season, where Hopper left a letter for Elle. It may be that Max ultimately does die, which would also suck. I don't know, because I love all the characters. But, I'm still worried for all of them. But one thing I should note is I don't think the Duffer Brothers actually said straight out, somebody's going to die. I think they said it certainly feels like everybody's in danger this season. So it could be too.
It's either going to be somebody dies or they go to space. There's only really two options left for this series. If they don't pull
things in space.
If they don't pull a wash and drive a spike through somebody's heart suddenly, then they have to go to space. That's pretty much it.
We all know
they could always...
that Master Chief is going to fall from the heavens and save them all and take off his helmet and goes.
I gave Halo. I just read Paramount gave Halo a second season 2.
I know.
Again,
why
in the thousands watching? CBS and Paramount fucking doubled down on the dumbest shit.
That's because George Cheeks, man. George Cheeks is the one running the show, and I know he's got a funny name, but he's making a lot of dumb mistakes. And to be this dumb in the shadow of David Zaslav.
The cheeks.
All right, I want to keep us on topic.
Yeah.
So
I want to keep us on topic here, because
again, I want to go into this because Lucas is the one character I probably connect with the most, because I was in that world like he is, where I was a nerd, but I was also an all-state athlete. I was did all these sports. It was good at it, but I love being a nerd. And those moments where he gets caught, like between the cool guys and the fucking nerds, it's like I remember feeling that pressure. And but I just gave into it and says, "Yeah, those are my buddies," and I went, "Fuck it," And I never got picked on for it. Nobody ever messed with me about it. That I hung out with nerds.
Well, and there's there's a penalty. I mean, you're saving the world, okay? To continue
I wanted to add that is the best story arc or character arc for me. Is Lucas from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and his acceptance of being both.
All right, go ahead, Keith. I want to hear what you wanted to say.
Well, I was just going to say, all love to you, Gerry. To be caught between that is an example of someone who is kind of really growing. I can definitely see him completely leaving all of this and everyone behind. I mean, if the problems with Hawkins had never happened and you would allowed these characters to grow, I think Lucas would have been the first one to leave the group. You know, he was always different in the sense that he was seeking something else, you know, and that's what I think he was growing into. That's the reason why I said, even though I don't want to see the character die, I could definitely see them killing him off because
Lucas?
He represents, he represents too much of a change. You know, you've got to stay with the characters who are actually focused on saving the world.
Well, there's somebody in the story group that they're working with saying, you can't kill the one black kid.
That was about to say, is like, that'd be the last thing.
Horror films are too common.
I know.
I know. Guy in a horror film is like a red shirt in Star Trek.
Yeah.
If you were to switch the characters of Dustin and Lucas, if Dustin had been black and Lucas had been white, it would have probably been, an easier thing to do because Dustin is, again, kind of inoculated in the fact that he is the race stance of the group. But let me also add in something else. The very fact that they keep bringing up the whole thing about Dustin's girlfriend and all of that, and there's always going to be someone smart to help out. There's always going to be someone that's going to be your smart guy. That's the reason why Dustin also made my list as someone who could possibly be killed. It would affect the group deeply.
I still say it's Steve because he's young enough to still be technically a kid, old enough that he's in the adult range, and it'd be the most tragic because of all the characters. He's the one that has been the rock throughout the entire thing. He's been the babysitter. He's been the love interest. He's come at the last second.
So many arcs.
Yeah, his sacrifice. If he was sacrificed, if he did a whole Han Solo to Nancy's Leia. And she's like, I love you. And he's like, I know. And then he suddenly explodes or something. That'd probably be the best overall ending for the character. And if they do a spinoff, man, it better be something different enough that it doesn't feel like it's just rehashing stuff.
There's been some hubbub about Steve being taken off into his own direction for his own.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the case.
There is another thing also, and this falls back under the Will thing, because at the same time, we've been introduced to Eddie Munson right now. Eddie Munson is also the Dungeon Master. Who else was the Dungeon Master? Will can be replaced by Eddie Munson because Eddie Munson is being brought as a new character, but he seems to have a lot more written for him in character development within the last 7 episodes than we've seen throughout seasons. So Eddie Munson might be the replacement for Will and have to live up to that legacy because he's been introduced to the Upside Down as well as everything else.
Yeah, it goes back to my saying, I think it's going to be Will.
Yeah.
But if you end up making the kid that could probably be gay and killing him off, that's almost the same as killing off the black guy.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. The way you've written this, and plus, given the fact that Will has suffered so much, that's the reason why I keep saying his story arc could be something to where it might be all the suffering that he's been through could be for an actual purpose to allow him to. I'm sorry.
But the problem is that picture, like everyone's going on the assumption that he might be gay and he has feelings for Mike. What if it's not that? But I'm trying to say is maybe this picture is actually the prediction of his death. And he hasn't given it to Mike because he doesn't know how to break the news. That's why he's trying to talk to Mike alone. That's why he's angry because he's trying to get this out and things seem to be building up. He's not giving any chance or time or call to Will, and Will feels blown up. There's an underlying thing here. We don't know what's on the picture. It doesn't have to be a raw emotion of like feelings. It could be the fact that he has seen this coming ever since he was taken to the Upside Down and been infected with the slug, and that he knows his future. It's like Minority Report in a painting.
Well, could it also be that Mike is in the picture and then it's Mike that dies?
I want to
too.
comment on this idea of Will being gay, because there's a lot of shippers in the community that are all for it, and we just got Robin being gay, which I heard was an 11th hour decision by the writers season 3.
Yeah, that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. But Will being gay is, look, man, I had a lot of gay friends growing up.
Well, I have gay friends now, but let me finish what I was going to say, though.
I know they don't like me now.
This is this because you broke their heart.
Knocked their ass.
But but the thing about it is, I think for me, it's always been a question of their friendship, and the problem with 11 has not been has been that she has gotten between their friendship, and I think that the Duffer Brothers are intelligent enough to recognize that, you know, you can't make every character gay and have people take it seriously. Even gay people take it seriously. They if they're gonna be represented in any way in a show, I think they'd rather it be as human beings rather than just another token.
Yes.
I think that with Will and Mike, it is really comes down to friendship, and probably Will wants to be happy for Mike, has kind of come to terms with it, and yeah, it may be him that dies, or you know, it just, for me, I actually hope it's about friendship, not because I'm against gay characters or anything like that, but it's kind of like, I think someone pointed out recently, a lot of gay characters are treated like homophobic people in the 80s used to, like, if you had a best friend, they're like, oh, you two are gay, you know, it used to be an insult. Now if you have a best friend, it's like, oh, you two they have to ship you, like you have to be gay. There's no such thing as just having a best friend that you love, because I have very good friends that I tell them I love them all the time, and it's a platonic thing, and we all know it, and we may, you know, there may be jokes every once in a while, but you know, it's sometimes I think it's good to just show, and I hope this show does it, two male characters having a healthy friendship and have it be platonic love, and have that be okay instead of just another ship. If that's just me, but
I agree there.
I believe we should ship 2 black guys and everything will be okay.
Wait. Shipping black guys is a whole other subject we're not going to be talking about.
It's
a history lesson we do not need to get into here.
I'm just kidding. But no, it makes sense. Like, that's the best part about this. What was the last time we were
I'm looking
talking
at
about
you,
a show
Steven,
like
right
this?
now.
Go ahead, Fat Steven.
When was the last time you were actually having a show like this where you could debate not the bad negativities about it, but what the outcomes could be? It's like listening to the whole Picard, Cisco, and Kirk mentality. You're not getting that, but you're getting it here. So even if the Duffer Brothers kills off someone we don't even expect, or don't kill off anyone, the fact that we're having this type of conversation is pretty much well deserved and been waited for.
Oh yeah, I'm not even interested in talking about other shows, because all it is, you know, critiquing. They're so needing of critiques that the critiques get so harsh. It just feels like, you know, beating someone to the ground and just pummeling them. It's like, well, it's not even fun. But this absolutely is. Now I want to jump to another thing, which just going back to 11's parallel with 1's parallel, because 1 is essentially like, as a kid, he's shown as like essentially the stereotypical like future serial killer, whose answer to you know, everything is just violence. And they kind of parallel it with 11, where, you know, she's feeling hurt, she's feeling bullied, and she retaliates with violence. But the difference is that once she hits the girl with the skate, she's kind of like falls into this she feels awful about it. She doesn't, and not just she feels like she did the wrong thing, but she feels like she's a monster. She feels like she doesn't belong. Whereas 1's parallel would make the difference between her and 1 is that 1 also thinks he's a monster, but he likes it and he thinks he's absolutely in the right. So
yeah, it's the Vader Luke thing.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing real quick. Did anybody else, and I know I'm not trying to be the resident rain cloud here, but I understand that this season is a bit of a soft reboot in a lot of ways, and I realize that they're expanding her origin story. But two things. One, I feel like the revision to her origin story is a little shoehorned. It just feels like a little out of nowhere. And the other thing too is that and it's very soap opera. She's coming out of effectively an amnesia to remember her past that they've just written into the show. And I always felt like that was a little bit of an awkward device to do it. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just the cynical one. I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
she actually, what she remembers of her past is not actually what happened. So she's actually freaking out because she's having these nightmares. And as she's introduced to one and going down those parallels of her past, we're starting to see that she's not like one, that she didn't have all those violent tendencies. And what we see with the roller skate is literally seeing her trapped. She doesn't have her powers. She's emotionally distressed. She's being bullied. She feels ultimately alone, and she lashed out. The emotional buildup was too much. She resorted to a physical outlet. And that's why she felt not only bad, but humble for the fact that she smacked that one girl who deserved it in the face with the skate. I'm sorry.
Well, she has
skateboards.
Yeah, she has a moral center. I mean, and primarily because she met the friends that she did after she escaped and found her moral center, because she didn't have any other idea of what the world was. So her development,
coping mechanisms.
She didn't have any coping mechanisms. She didn't have any sense of there was something beyond just herself to rely on, and so on. So her character development makes perfect sense. I don't understand why they didn't kill one. If he was that dangerous. That's the one thing, because they kept talking about they're going to kill 11 because she's too dangerous and Brenner fears her.
Well,
why the heck keep one alive?
I think this is an inspiration taken straight from Dean Koontz with Watchers, where you have two versions of the same creature. And I think a lot of the lab stuff is less Stephen King and more Dean Koontz, and clearly inspired by it.
Also, it was. I think they also took inspiration from the James Cameron television series Dark Angel. Going their second season covers some of the same things that you've seen. By having your lead character meet someone else that was in the program with them. It's also a theme that was carried over to a show like Dollhouse by Joss Whedon. So I think they're treading over some of that same ground and trying to just figure out their own way.
You also think about Wolverine and Sabretooth.
Yeah. Well, this is hard to do. It's hard to have a show. On the one hand, it's hard to find a way through a show and get fans to follow. But it's even harder to keep them going, as we've seen with Lost and as we've seen with Game of Thrones, although that was more about the author, and other shows. It's difficult. But again, as I said, I give the Duffer Brothers a lot of credit. They kept all of us intrigued.
The thing about Stranger Things, there definitely are what I would call small plot holes. There are definitely flaws. Like, in Eleven's flashback, she certainly talks more than she did when we first met her in season 1. There are little things like that, but I'm willing to let those things slide because I think every show will slide into its shorthand a little bit in terms of trying to get the story, keep it moving, get it across, and I can forgive those things. I think again, it's a show that right now, compared to pretty much all the other shows that are out at the moment, that I have no interest in whatsoever. I mean, I'm no interest in Star Trek, no interest in Star Wars. No interest. I mean, I've liked Alien and Aliens were like my favorite movies ever. I have no interest in any prequels or sequels from here on out, even if they're good.
Wait, you don't want to watch the native community attack a predator in the forest? What's wrong?
I just, you know how much of that was a ripoff of a fan film that's been on YouTube for like 3 years now, right?
Yeah, I've heard about. Yeah, I've seen that fan film. There was a comic before that they had Native Americans fighting a predator. But really what I'm saying is just Stranger Things says to me that there's still an audience that wants good characters who behave in a heroic fashion. There's still an appetite for new material. They're not interested in rehashing stuff. And look, Like, I'm as interested in, or my kids are as interested in Indiana Jones as I was interested as a kid in Gunga Din when my grandfather was like, it's just like Gunga Din, you should watch that. And I'm like, I want Indiana Jones. Now my kids, they don't want Indiana Jones. They don't want Star Wars. You know what they want? They want Stranger Things and they want Hamilton. You know, those are like the two things that they just are always talking about is Stranger Things and Hamilton. They want their own things. But just to see that at the core of it, there is this appetite for characters who behave heroically and are loyal to each other. And I just love going back to not Dustin, Lucas. There's the scene where Paul Reiser's character is saying to 11, your friends are out there and they're doing what they need to do and they need your help and they need your support. And that was the moment they chose to show the bait and switch that Lucas wasn't going along with the basketball team. He was leading him and he was bailing on him right at that moment. What he was saying is like, Lucas did the right thing. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Did we have any doubt though? I mean, did we really have any doubt that Lucas wasn't going to like throw these guys under the bus? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but even though you and I can predict that, we're well versed in what makes a good, we're writers. We know what this stuff is. But for a general audience who doesn't pay attention to these things, doesn't have any idea about story structure, they just know when they're wrapped up in it, when they're involved. Like I said, that's me looking at my family in the Aristotelian fashion of seeing how they emotionally respond.
Sure.
General audiences, this is like all good stuff. And, like I said, the flaws you point out are absolutely correct. And you made the parallel between Stranger Things and The Stand. The Stand is one of the Stephen King books that I read, and I went, this novel is absolute trash. I hate it, everything about it.
I like parts of it. I like a lot of parts of it, but it definitely was way too long.
Here's the difference. Here's where I think Stranger Things succeeds where The Stand doesn't. And I read Stephen King's book on writing even talking about this. So he admitted it himself and congratulated himself for being so genius, which I'm like, this is the most idiot move ever. He wrote himself into a corner with most of these characters and went, I don't know what to do with them. I know, I'll plant a bomb and blow them all up.
Yeah, that was that.
There was that, definitely. The Duffer Brothers, they really seem to know, for better or worse, what they want to do with this story. So, I'm with you, Keith. I applaud them. I think it's great, so.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Not many TV shows can actually have it to the point where you care seemingly about almost everyone in the cast. And makes it really hard to be able to predict if someone was to go. To me, I see Dustin and Lucas as the best of friends, but they're also on two opposite points until they come together again. That's though what life in high school will do. They are, all of them are on their own individual separate journeys of growing up. And that is a part of what this should be. That's part of the reason why, for me, it works. It's one of the things that Joss Whedon got right with Buffy, because you can't get beyond that. You can't just focus on the spectacular things that a character will do. What made Buffy so good, what makes Stranger Things so good, and even Harry Potter, is that you also have to balance in the reality of being that age. And all the different things that come into play on top of everything else. Thus the reason why I like to call it the Steve Ditko Stan Lee Spider-Man effect. You pay attention to how that character was balanced and you get it.
Yeah. It's got a good there's a term a lot of writers use, or at least in filmmaking, they say with a story, and this was it season 3, season 2, where Elle went off on her own and found her punk rock sister.
Yeah.
That episode was completely focused on them. There were no breakaways to what anyone else was doing, and it was the episode that didn't work the best because of what a lot of filmmakers refer to as the meanwhile back at the ranch effect. You get the story to a certain point where it's like you're going to start, you get them to a point and then you're going to start losing them if you don't cut to something else. And I think Stranger Things has always been successful at that to one degree or another, except for that one episode, which was the episode everyone said that they didn't like. It was fine. It was interesting, and I hope they bring that character back for something too. But it just wasn't handled very well. Now, unless anyone else wants to comment on that, I want to go on to recommendations in case anybody who's a Stranger Things fan is watching this show. What is something that you would want to put in maybe a younger person's hands and say, like, if you like Stranger Things, please check this out? It can be one or two or three people each. So, Scribe, why don't we start with you?
How young are we talking here? Because my first thoughts go to like R-rated films from the 80s.
Well, let's assume we are going from like, because I showed my 10-year-old Alien and Aliens. I said, don't say these swear words. But let's assume it's kind of that age that I think we all remember being, where maybe we are, early teens, and we're starting to maybe check out things that we don't necessarily should be, and then we're getting old enough where we can. So let's say like 18 range, 13 to 20.
Yeah, first thing that comes to mind, and I think it's probably because he's got a new movie out right now, is a Videodrome by David Cronenberg. Because as far as like questioning what is real versus what is not, contemplations of society versus media, and also having absolutely no idea what's going to come next, I don't think you can do much worse, or much better, I should say, than Videodrome.
Is Gerry with us? Did he mute himself?
No, he's just upset.
Looks like he muted himself.
I'm just listening.
Gerry, do you have any recommendations for people that want to watch Stranger Things and want to check out other influences or things like it?
Well, I highly recommend some of the better written Stephen King and of course anything by Dean Koontz. That's it.
That's it. Okay, just everything those guys have ever written. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, Dean Koontz, everything he's ever written from Demon Seed on.
Yeah.
Pat Steven?
I would introduce them to the original X-Files. I would go back to the 90s Outer Limits, not the black and white. I would push on even things like The Magicians, because I did enjoy that show. Fringe from J.J. Abrams when he still knew how to write. And then we can go and introduce a whole library of anime if we want to. There's all of that anime. And then from there, you can go into low-key 80s, maybe late 70s, early 80s sci-fi and start doing Lost in Space and then show the movie and then go into the remake from Netflix. There's a whole bunch of things. And then if they're into the alternate reality stuff, not the MCU at all, no multiverse crap there. No, keep that away. Just give them Winter Soldier and that's it. And Iron Man 1. And then branch off into that. Or actually just don't even do media. Sit them down, use their creativity to make a character, and do a basic Dungeons and Dragons run.
How about you, Keith? And Dungeons and Dragons is something we didn't talk about, so maybe I'll kind of put that as an addendum after this.
Oh no, what did I do?
For me, it would definitely be the film Ready Player One with Buckaroo Banzai. I'd say Star Trek, and I mean Star Trek, not comma or colon anything else after. It's Star Trek. That's what I would give. Just Star Trek, and then I would say the first 3 seasons of Lost. And then just cut it after that. Just say, look, nothing else happened after that. The show was done.
Yeah, I thought we were being asked for like a single recommendation. If it was like multiples, I'd say, Videodrome, Explorers. Remember Explorers from the 80s?
That's a good one.
If you like Stranger Things, because I'm trying to think of other like kid adventure movies, and there was one other, and I don't know if people remember this one, and it always creeped me out. It was called The Quest. and it starred the kid from E.T. And that it's a single kid trying to solve a mystery in a town kind of thing. I don't think it has anything supernatural per se, but it has that same kind of vibe of trying to figure out what's going on in your town or something mysterious. And I don't think I remember it having a big impact on me as a kid. I don't know if it's a good movie anymore. I haven't seen it in years.
It sounds a lot like. Oh, I was just going to say Erie, Indiana is another one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All the episodes of that are out, I think, on Blu-ray.
Sure.
And Gerry, you were going to say.
I think
Erie, Indiana.
Oh. Well, I'll give some recommendations, which I think, like Explorers, Scribe, that was a one as a kid. Except until they actually, with a mild spoiler here, until they actually meet the aliens. Everything leading up to that had me so jazzed as a kid. I was like, what is going on here? And, if in terms of friendships and adventures, the Goonies is another one, which actually I loved as a kid. I can't really watch it now as an adult. It doesn't resonate like it did for me, but anything like that was kind of a group of friends going on an adventure. And what is it, Keith?
You know what? My kids really enjoyed the film Evolution.
Oh, yeah, Ghostbusters.
With David Duchovny. Yeah, Ghostbusters without Ghostbusters. The message of the film is a really solid message. And again, it plays to everything that we've been talking about, which is friendship and doing what is right. And plus, it's got a funny cast.
I thought the message of the movie was dandruff control.
That too, but that's spoilers. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I'll have to go back and check that out because I remember liking it when I saw it. As far as the horror stuff goes, horror movies, I mean, everyone's going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, with this season, and maybe a bit of Hellraiser. I, of course, going to tell people, go check out John Carpenter's The Thing, or any of the John Carpenter's Apocalypse series, like Prince of Darkness or At the Mouth of Madness. And also, in terms of reading, I really got into Junji Ito and his work. Have you guys ever checked out any of his stuff?
No.
Really? Let's see if I can just open up a random page and just see. Well, okay, maybe not that random, but, just creepy, all of his artwork is just strange. And it's, it's obviously a Japanese style, but it's not manga. And this is a guy who really taps into the dread and the otherworldliness of Lovecraft. So I definitely recommend checking out Junji Ito's work. They've adapted it into anime. They've even done live action. None of it has tracked like when you actually read it and hold it in your hands. I mean, and he does, it's not just weird creatures or, it's like there's a whole story about a whole town that is essentially besought and haunted by spirals.
Oh, it's Uzumaki.
Yeah, Uzumaki.
Oh, okay, yeah, Uzumaki. No, there's a movie, Uzumaki. Is that what you're talking? Because that sounded familiar. There's a movie called Uzumaki. It's all about that same thing. And I was kind of like, is that what he's talking about? Yeah, so maybe that's an adaptation of that book. I don't know.
It is, yeah. It's far creepier when you read it.
Okay. There's
a story he did about a record that when you play it and listen to it, you become obsessed with it, and anyone else hears it will be obsessed with it, and they'll steal it from you. And so it's a bunch of people just killing each other over this record, and then the dead bodies start singing the songs in the records. It's like really creepy. Keith, you had something?
Two more recommendations. Comics. The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, all of it. All from beginning to end. And The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic. Stay away from the movie. Yeah. There is a lot going on there. If you enjoyed Penny Dreadful in much that same way, because Penny Dreadful inspired my daughter to go back and read the classic horror novels that fed into that. And it's the same thing with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It'll make you want to go back and read a lot of the classic novels that form the basis of the original comic, and then all of the sequels play out, because it's a whole story unto itself. It's a whole world unto itself.
Speaking of Alan Moore, I am actually going to at some point dedicate another live stream, Quantum Terror live stream, to his Lovecraftian series Providence, which is I'm probably going to have to go back and reread it because that's really dense, but that's worth checking out. And as far as Penny Dreadful goes, I really loved that series and those characters with about first season and a half, and then it went way off the rails for me, which was a shame because I felt like they were really on to something there. And then and this goes back to it is there's so many series where either a different showrunner takes over and they just don't get it, or they want to make it into their thing rather than service the material, which when we talked to Sarah Frazetta the other day, she really talked about really being in service of her grandfather Frank Frazetta's vision, which I thought was great, and Peter Jackson did. But someone was I haven't seen it, but somebody was telling me about Burn Notice, how it was an excellent series until some other showrunner, which was like the wife of the showrunner, took over, and then it just like turned into something completely different that nobody wanted. It might not have been Burn Notice, but I think it was. Anyway, one last thing though, because we didn't talk about D&D and Satanic Panic. And that, to me, that actually reflects on what we're going through today, because instead of, back then it was Satanists, and everyone was on the witch hunt for Satanists, even though the stories were ridiculous. And that was kind of one of the things about when the basketball kid was like, the things I've seen, I'm like, will somebody ask, what did he see? Because as soon as he said it, it'll sound ridiculous to them. But at the same time, with the whole like Satanist daycare thing in Southern California, it was like they're putting kids in the courtroom to testify. Like, what did the Satanists have you do? And they're like, oh, they took us up in a balloon, to visit with Satan. And it's like, nobody heard that and went, wait a minute, this sounds made up. But now we've got the witch hunt. D&D's going through the same thing right now, but the witch hunt is within D&D. Now they're like trying to weed out I don't know if I can say the word for, YouTube algorithms, but the Yahtzees, it's like everything in D&D is kind of being purged and reimagined for like, you tried.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. You're back, or you're good. Anyway, like I said, D&D is kind of like not the D&D of Stranger Things. It's this new D&D where everyone's kind of like, this new group of people has gotten into it and ousted the original D&D fans and kind of turned it into something that's like, I don't know, purified.
Dungeons and diversity.
It's just like, I don't know. It was a funny parallel that I just kind of noted, because I remember the Satanic Panic stuff. I remember seeing Jello Biafro and Ice-T on Oprah confronting Tipper Gore, all this really weird stuff. And it was kind of interesting to see that addressed now, and to, I don't know if it's just me, but I felt like there were parallels of what we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
Another quick recommendation I forgot to bring is Sanctuary with Commander Carter from SG-1 as the lead.
Haven't heard of that one.
A web series that eventually became a television series. And the ending, I thought, was really strong. I mean, it was the entire story, kind of like Fringe. It's an entire television show that has a beginning, middle, and an end. And it works. It really does work.
Well, speaking of beginning, middles, and ends, season 5 is supposed to be the end. So it's kind of nice knowing that even though there may be a spinoff, if in some way. Maybe it's all new characters just dealing with the Upside Down. We at least know that we're going to have a payoff with this season, and it's not going to drag out like Lost did. I think Lost was the last series that my wife and I really got invested in before this, where we were just like, after a while, we're like, this is clearly not going anywhere. They clearly don't have a vision for it. Stranger Things does. All right. Well, I think this has been a good talk.
I still love Gerry because he looks upset. I still love Gerry.
I don't look. Why do you think I'm?
I don't know. I just feel like doing that for no reason. I love you.
I'm really looking forward. Okay, so just at the end, like, did you guys check out the trailer for the last 2 episodes? Did you see the different kind of things in there? Like,
is there a trailer?
I haven't seen it.
No. Okay,
No, I haven't.
The trailer shows a menagerie of Lovecraftian creatures in the Russian outpost that Hopper comes across. He's got a flamethrower like MacReady. And it also shows blocking on her name all of a sudden. Not Robin.
Nancy.
Nancy's got a shotgun, so we know that she's probably going to escape Vecna. Vecna. One complaint about the show: did Vecna not remind you of Syndrome in The Incredibles? He had quite a monologue.
Oh God, the monologues. The Hopper one in the prison. I kept thinking when we zoom back out again, is the Russian guy going to be hanging from a rope like an airplane? Because I was like, boy, that went on a long time, man. Jeez, melodrama there a little bit. Schmaltzy.
It's sort of like Phoebe Cates in Gremlins. The first one, when she just goes on about her dad dying in a chimney.
I like right in there too, where she starts to monologue too, and her boyfriend grabs her like, "We don't have time for this. Come on, let's go."
I have a feeling we're going to get introduced by season 5 if they are going to start doing spin-offs or introduce, let's say, a new set of characters with one of the characters coming from the old show. Is we're only being introduced to one realm of the Upside Down. We don't know how many doors can be opened and whatever happens by the end.
How far it goes? Why is there a world in existence and there's no humans in it at all?
Why is it frozen on that date? Was the Upside Down created on that day? Anyway, that's stuff for another time.
And that could freeze a new date for the next season or the next chapter or whatever you want to call it, because we're not getting chapters, we're getting seasons. So
yeah. All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up because we could go on for ages. But there's, like I said, thank you, gentlemen, so much. There is a lot to unpack from this show, which is in itself just makes it wonderful that we can talk about this, because you can sum up Obi-Wan Kenobi in like 1 minute.
Toilet paper.
Yeah. Exactly.
Garbage fire. Yeah.
And a lot, or Book of Boba Fett, or a lot of the Star Trek stuff, or anything like that. So I'm really happy that we have something, and it's something that's new. It's not a 60-year-old franchise or a 25 or 40-year-old. All these things that we love. I want to see new things as a creator, as someone who just made a Lovecraftian film, The Quantum Terror, which is what this podcast is named after. And you gentlemen, I know, without saying anything, are working on your own original things. I want to see more of that, and I want to be able to talk about that. And I think encouraging that, feeding that, not just feeding into, hey, this 40-year-old franchise sucks now. It's like, it feels like, to me, it feels like going like, boy, the new season of Gunga Din really stinks. So anyway, thank you very much. Anybody else want to add anything before we go?
I think things are changing in a positive way. As long as more and more people in the entertainment industry begin to really look at trying to do business and trying to make something that not everything has to be uber expensive, like the next Marvel property, whether on the big screen or on television.
Yeah, everywhere except for at Disney and Paramount, where they doubled down on stupid.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Disney. I don't understand why
Season 2 Halo.
would
Yeah.
want to work for Disney at this point, because they just
Oh.
like, as soon as you outlive your usefulness, or as soon as you step out of line, they just burn you to the ground.
Yeah.
Who would want, if Disney came to me with a big paycheck and said, hey, we want to hire you, I'd be like, it's not worth it. It's not worth ruining my life.
I'd do it. No, I'd do it. No, I would. I'd come up with the stupidest idea and see if they'd be dumb enough to make it.
I would
I'll
down a
cash
job
that
at
check.
Disney, so I know where I stand.
I would accept the money, but I would not use my real name.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for my listeners, if you're interested in watching the Quantum Terror, it's available on Zumo right now. It's going to be on Tubi. I'm so excited to be on.
Yay!
That is the place to
You've
be.
not
Anybody else
seen
want to plug
anything until
anything?
you see the clitoris monster.
That's a deleted scene. Speaking of deleted scenes, I'm sorry. He popped in. I'm sorry he didn't join us. But yes, that's a deleted scene. You're really selling the movie for me. People are going to be
I
like,
can't help it. It's so fucking awesome, dude. I love you. Are so Freudian with this film. Clearly,
I'm actually very Jungian.
Oh boy.
I like your storytelling, dude. You're really
Thank you.
good, and people need to check out your work. That's why I support you.
You do. Hey, we wouldn't be here. You're the one that pulled this group together for me. So I don't forget that. Yeah, that's why I put up with your shit.
Vagina monster.
All right, I am ending it. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone that listened. And what is this? M broadcast?